I'd like to call this June 3rd City of Carrollton Mayor and Council meeting to order. If you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by me and remain standing for the invocation by Mr. Triplett.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, and we thank you, Lord, for the many blessings that you bestowed on our lives, on our community. Father, as we gather together, Lord, to conduct the business of your city, we ask you to have a special blessing, Lord, on the city and the community of Virginia Beach, Lord, in the tragedy that they suffer. Lord, the city hall, the local government, family, the community at large. God, we come to work every day, we go about our business, and we take so much for granted. Father, we ask you, Lord, those that were lost their life, that you would comfort and heal their families. Lord, those that have been injured, we ask you to touch and heal them, Lord. And we just ask a special blessing on that community up there, Lord. Father, as we gather together, Lord, we ask you to be with the mayor and council. God, we ask you to give them wisdom, discernment, and guidance as they conduct the business of this city. Father, we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Gets us down to item number 4, citizens' comment. If you have something you'd like to bring before this body, if you would please come to the front. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. State your name and address. And at this time, we will start with that.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Gray. I was here last month. I'm working with a committee at the University of West Georgia to do with the recent discovery of the slave cemetery on campus. And we're planning a memorial ceremony around Juneteenth, which is June 19th. And we'd like to get a proclamation from the city to do with that event. So I've spoken to Commissioner Gerald, and he's given me the contact name for that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Gray.
You said for July, Ms. Gray.
July or June?
June. What? So you can't do something in the same month?
We can do something in the
I mean,
same. If I come to you, like if you have an event or program, I could come to you with the proclamation. You understand what I'm saying? Like if you have, we could read it somewhere. There's an activity going. If there's an activity going on, I could bring the proclamation to that activity and read it.
Uh-huh.
Or we could wait till the July meeting and do like a culminating activity and maybe invite some of the people who have been on program at the celebrations here and we read the proclamation to close out the meeting. Does that make sense? Why do we vote? I think vote
Okay.
together. But we can't have, we won't have another meeting.
N-
Not another public comment.
Okay, but can you not do the proclamation? Is that what you're
Oh,
telling
we
me?
can do proclamation. I'm just saying if we read it before this body.
Oh, we can come back in July and read it,
But if you're having
but we need it for the event in June.
and we won't be around for you. I know I won't be around for the event.
Okay. All right, but I do appreciate the support for this event. It's historic. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, the Honorable City Councilman. My name is Chris Davis, 208 Farmington Trace. Some concerns about Optimus Park. Took my niece over there this past week. Just some safety concerns about the playground equipment as well as the paved area for basketball. Just want to save the city from some risk or something and injuries to kids because the roots have buckled the concrete and there's no way they can have a basketball game there without some kind of risk of physical and bodily harm. So if we could just get somebody to check that out just from a safety standpoint and help us out with that. My second point, really quick, for Chief Carroll. Not Carroll, sorry, went way back in time. Can we address the speed on North Lake Shore Drive? Just walking in front of the rec department, they're coming off of the bypass and they're maintaining at 55 miles an hour, blowing through that three-way stop and just all the way to Stewart Street. So if we could just get more visibility or something to retard speeds in that area. Seeing how the rec department is our crown jewel in that area, we got a lot of kids, bus stops, animals, pets, geese. So if we could just address the speed in that area, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. Okay. It's cutting in and out, I hear. I can, I'm not sure.
Oh, it wasn't on. Testing. Can you hear me now? Good. Chris, we have been addressing that part, Robert Hendricks Park. As you note, too, there are brand new bathrooms over
Yes.
there, which I
Love it.
personally designed.
Yes.
It should look like a little chalet. Did you see the front?
Yes.
Ah.
Love it.
So we have been addressing issues over there, but we appreciate your attention and the things that you brought to our attention that we're already aware of, and we're in the, Peter, where you at? We're in the works of working on those things. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. But I do hope you like the bathrooms.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
are open every day.
Yes, and that's drawing more people there. It's becoming a meeting spot, so just to make it safer for all the kids, all the residents to fully play and enjoy it without having to worry about safety hazards. Just want somebody to check it out and make sure.
Can
we're
you
good.
text me those items as well, like any little
I will.
bullet
I've got some
points of-
pictures and stuff from
Okay,
what we
good.
saw, because we wound up leaving because it was like, don't want to cut, don't want it to be burned, those types of
And I saw your brother in Walmart. He cornered me too
Yeah,
about
and he
this. So.
called me at 12 o'clock that night. Thank you, Mr. Hurd.
Saw him at midnight. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben Jenkins. I live at 1100 Farmers High Road in Carrollton. I'm here to speak tonight to concerns about the recent events surrounding the Calendar Girls play. I understand that there were certain persons involved in the city making the decision to drop its support of that play in some respects. It was somewhat of an embarrassment to me personally to see my hometown on local news stations where it was made apparent that not all of the due diligence was done at the beginning of the selection of this particular play. There were policies, it is my understanding, that were in place, that were put into place after a similar event happened previously, many years ago, with the CCCT, and it is pretty much egg on the face of the entirety of Carrollton at this point in time to have had the support pulled. Now, I understand that there has been some addressing of this issue, that there have been situations put forward that the play may continue to proceed in some way, shape, or form, but not necessarily with the city of Carrollton giving its full support. And I know that the city of Carrollton has been a longtime supporter of the arts, and that has always been a point of pride that I have taken. And I just wanted to express my personal disappointment in the handling of this situation from the city's standpoint. Thank you very much.
I'm going to read since I'm timed. My name is Megan Bennett, and I live at 402 Cedar Street, and I've lived in Carrollton for most of my life. I also want to talk about the issues regarding the Calendar Girls cancellation. There are two issues regarding this, in my opinion, and I want to address them both briefly. Carrollton is a city for people of all ages, not just children. As the mom of a 2-year-old and one on the way, I'm looking forward to purchasing Calendar Girl tickets and having a night out without my children in tow. As an adult, if you don't like the idea of women in bras and underwear, then perhaps you shouldn't buy tickets. It really is that simple. That aside, someone please explain to me how it's okay to cancel a play like Calendar Girls that would take place behind closed doors that you have to purchase tickets to, and we are showing rated PG-13 movies at the AMP this summer, when you can simply drive by and, God forbid, see something horrific. Censorship is not okay, and it does not belong in the city of Carrollton. The bigger issue here, though, is the way this whole thing was handled. If the issue of the play had been brought before the entire council and the council, voted on by the citizens of Carrollton, voted on this issue in an open meeting, I doubt there would have been this big of an outrage. Instead, our city manager, Tim Grizzard, heard about the play, was apparently uncomfortable with it, and took it upon himself, and I quote from an email directly from him, speak with several council members, local pastors, and community leaders by phone to gain input and to discuss possible concerns over the performance. The level of concern varied, but the consensus was to withdraw the play from the upcoming season of city-sponsored performances. Calling a few of your friends that agree with you and then canceling a play for an entire community is not okay. Then stating to the Times-Georgian that the city council approved of that decision is not okay. City Councilman Gerald Byrd knew nothing of the decision until after the play was canceled. That is not getting city council approval. It is not okay to mislead people, and good old boy politics is not okay. Carrollton is better than this.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we will move ahead. Have the minutes, item number 5. Assume y'all had a chance to read them all, and y'all are ready to go.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve the minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Thank you, sirs. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, please raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Item number 6, mayor and council announcements. Anybody got anything they want to say?
Yes, I would like to specifically just thank our staff for their hard work. Joel Richards for his fundraising efforts to help at-risk and children with special needs and disabilities. Chief Bearden for his hard work, Mike Green, everybody. Anytime I call on them, they're there, and they're very supportive in not only the endeavors that I pursue, but our citizens as well. And I would also like to recognize Tony Richardson right now. I don't know where he is at. Probably trying to hide. Oh, there he is. He's trying to hide. But Tony Richardson, anytime I call him on an issue, he's like Superman. I mean, it's absolutely incredible that I called him about something today, and I turned and he was standing right there, and it scared me. And it scared my dog. But I think that's the kind of response that we need from our staff, not only for me, but for our citizens as well. So I hope you guys are responding to them the way you respond to me. But I do say hats off to you. And I don't want to sound accusatory in what I'm saying, but hats off to you. And then secondly, I would like to remind everybody that it's hot outside. Stay hydrated, double check your back seats, make sure that there's not a child left in your back seat. And if you know an elderly person or a person who's homeless or a person who's sick, call and check on them, and better yet, go by and check on them as well to make sure that they're okay, because it is hot. So thank you.
I'm going to move it on to you. Nobody else wants to speak. Approval. City manager announcement.
Just real quickly, again, I want to thank all the staff for all their hard work, but I want to specifically thank Peter Meyerhofer. This is a time of year when he is busiest, and he gets some of the craziest complaints I've ever seen, and no one is ever happy. And I know a lot of people are using his swimming pools and water park and had some mechanical issues there. And again, he gets a lot of bizarre complaints. They never make it to my office. He always handles them, so I appreciate that. And I see what you're going through, and I don't envy your position, so thank you.
All right, sirs. Item number 8, approval of agenda items for consideration. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion we approve the agenda items as set forth.
I have a second. I have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Item number 1, Ms. Studdard, rezoning request.
The first item on your agenda is a rezoning request at Maple View Drive. This is in the Maple Street Commons development. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at both their April and their May meeting. They ultimately recommended approval of the request to rezone the property at Mapleview Drive for the villages at Maple from ER3, which is a state residential with 3-acre lots, to a residential planned development to construct a subdivision with 75 single-family residences on 20.13 acres. The following conditions were recommended as part of this approval. Number one, the siding material is to consist of hardy plank and masonry, so no vinyl siding. And then the second one is a moot point at this point because they did provide this, but floor plans are to be submitted prior to the application being reviewed by the mayor and council. Those floor plans are located in your packets. The Planning Commission voted to approve this with a 5-2 approval. I do believe the applicant's here if you have any questions.
Do we have any here that wants to speak on behalf of them?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Joe Fowler. I'm a lawyer in Douglasfield, and let me introduce Stephanie Elliott, who works with D.R. Horton. As just mentioned, the property is located on Maple View Drive. I believe that's a public right-of-way. And I can show you our plan, which this is the north-south configuration. Most of you have seen it this way, but I do it this way to point out that it's located on Maple View Drive. It comes out obviously to Maple Street. There's a commercial area right here that everybody knows about. This is raw land to the east. We're separated from that raw land parcel by a creek. There's raw land to the west, and then in Heritage Hills, we adjoin 3 houses, the Lambs, the McMillans, and the Sanders. And we are pulling back the development for a 50-foot undisturbed buffer there. We got the standard stream buffer along the east. To the west, there's a 30-foot buffer. There are 4, what they are now calling pocket parks, 4 areas where there'll be no homes built. That's here, 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 and here. And then here is another open space area in this location. Originally, this was approved for subdivision that contained 86 total lots. And then when the economic downturn occurred in the mid-2000s, 2007, 2008, in that range, this 86 single-family unit subdivision essentially shut down. As a result of that, as was just mentioned by Erica, the city rezoned that to 3 units per acre. D.R. Horton, a national developer, has the property under contract, subject, though, to the zoning. It's modified the site plan to propose a total of that number that I mentioned, 75 homes, with an average total lot size of 6,549 square feet. The price range, mid-220s to the 260s. The homes will be between 1,774 square feet up to 3,236 square feet. One of the conditions of the Planning and Zoning Board was hardy plank and masonry. They were going to do it anyway, but that is the condition that, of course, they'll comply with. Pricing varies based on interior finishes. Of course, everybody knows that when you pick a different type of thing than the developer normally would anticipate for that plan, the price goes up. Let me point out one thing, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. During a very long planning and zoning meeting last time, a comparison was made to Windmill Park and this development, with the general discussion being, wow, if this were Windmill Park, that's sort of what we're looking for. So we did some studying. We looked at what Windmill Park provides in terms of its basic zoning, and the lot sizes are essentially the same as what is being proposed here. That's the development that everybody knows behind the Kroger. Lots are very similar in size. The price point is 230s to 280s based on their basic packages, but interior finishes, as someone in the audience mentioned, can drive it up to over $300,000. Same here. If you go for the more customized interior finishes, that could well happen here. And D.R. Horton specializes in responding to the requests of individual buyers to revise the desired finishes for their customers. So when the when this whole parcel came to the attention of D.R. Horton, They looked at the neighborhood. They realized that it adjoins those property owners to the north. So what they did was they reduced it from 8 houses along that property line down to 5. We impact, that is, we border on 3 houses. The rest of the houses, of course, in the neighborhood are scattered out. We understand their concerns that this is going to impact their property values, but these houses will all exit out through the current city street, Maple View Drive. By the way, as you've seen, if you've been by there, these streets are in. So we are building based on a pre-approved plan. We've just reduced the density from 86 to 75, and they're building houses that we understand to be in a price point in Carroll County that the county needs based on its current inventory of homes. There's nothing we can do about the fact that the neighbors don't like what's here proposed, but what they're trying to do is to minimize the effect by making an adequate use of this property so that it serves as a buffer between the commercial that everybody knows about here and then the residential that surrounds in the back. This is a decent buffer. It is not an apartment complex. It is single-family residences on 75 total lots. Now, in terms of traffic, that was mentioned last time. We did a traffic study that was provided to the city as a part of the application process. And based on that traffic study, the maximum exiting from this particular development along Maple View Drive in the AM peak is 42 per hour. That's less than 1 car per minute. In the evening, it's 47 cars coming back home to the subdivision. We believe that the feared traffic problem is minimized based on a proper assessment of precisely what the traffic study reveals. Now, we provided pictures of the actual homes that will be built, homes already having been built by D.R. Horton, as well as floor plans for each of the homes as well. As I mentioned, there'll be the 4 pocket parks in the amenity area, and D.R. Horton has agreed to connect the new subdivision to the Greenbelt. That was not initially a part of the application because we don't own the right-of-way to get from where this development will be over to the Greenbelt. But the city has agreed to give us the right to work within the city's already owned right-of-way for this particular development so that we can get to the Greenbelt. They'll pay the cost of that. Street lights will be provided as required by the city code. Sidewalks will be constructed on both sides as required by the city code. A mandatory HOA will maintain all the common areas. D.R. Horton does these things all the time, and they understand what is required to be maintained by an HOA. The developer will maintain it until it's turned over to the homeowners association. Now, certain neighbors expressed concern about stormwater control, and it was explained at the P&Z meeting by Tommy Holland that all current and all revised stormwater management regulations must be met and maintained by the developer. That is, even though there may be some initial work having been both designed, and I'm not sure what exactly is constructed on these 2 detention ponds, but the current regulations, whatever they are, will be required before the city grants a single building permit. And not only will it be required, it's got to be bonded so that the developer will ensure that the stormwater concerns that were expressed by 1 or more gentlemen who were in the audience in the April meeting, that all of those will be met. The point I want to make concerning that is D.R. Horton and their engineers know all about the requirements, what they are, and they also know about the legal liability because of stormwater issues if the requirements are not met. And if there's a problem, you can bet that that bond will be called, and it has to remain in effect according to whatever the internal city requirements are for that. After the developer is finished, the HOA will be in charge of the pond just like your ordinance requires. And it's not just the pond, but it's also the common areas as well. So we respectfully request your support for this application. We believe the plan before you provides that buffer that I mentioned a moment ago between the commercial properties and the land that lies adjacent to the south. As I mentioned, D.R. Horton learned about this property, knowing that the inventory of homes in this particular price point happens to be low in Carroll County, in the city of Carrollton, but in Carroll County. We believe the proposal gives a reasonable solution to the issue, while we hope minimizing the impact on the neighbors that are here. Their traffic exits through, of course, a significantly different area. We believe the traffic issues are met. We believe their desire for the type of housing in the Windmill Park area. This is a picture of what is provided in Windmill Park, and if you look into your package, you can see a design of ours that is very similar to that as well. We are here to respond to any questions that you may have. Stephanie can drill down into the specifics if you'd like to hear those, but that's the basic presentation, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I had a question for you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Burke.
I actually have about 4 points. The first one is, have you considered berm and buffer between this development and the existing development, which is Heritage Hills? Is there any type of separation between this neighborhood and that neighborhood? Do the retention ponds exist now, or are you going to build these retention ponds? And if they exist, how do they look? And I wish you had a visual for us to see what this property looks like now in its current state. Maybe you do.
At my chair. Maybe.
Oh, okay. I think that it might help your argument a little bit
Come
more.
around.
Why not?
Or give it to somebody.
Come on and come around. I mean, we don't bite. Oh. That's why I said we need an Elmo in here too, so we can have a device that you slide that into and it just instantly pops up there. Then everybody can see it. Y'all know what an Elmo is, everybody? It's the camera that we need that in
I went to school with Elmo.
here. We like Elmo.
You'll see it in the small version that's now being
Oh,
embarked.
no, I don't mean an aerial. I mean like if you were standing on the ground and actually took a photo of, because I think it's kind of blighted, isn't it? It's been a long time.
It has. Those streets were put in when this was originally approved for the 86 houses.
I was in my 20s.
Yeah, so was I. And the detention pond appears to be overgrown, as you see in this aerial right here. Here are the three houses that we adjoin right here. And this is the edge of the development. It will be undisturbed to the portion that I cannot now reach. But you see what the overgrowth is in that location that separates us from Heritage Hill. Of course, no impact here, no impact here. That's all undeveloped property.
So the buffer would just be those trees then? That's the buffer?
Yes, sir. Now,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, that's what the city requested, leave it undisturbed.
I didn't hear the question. You said if you're not mistaken, what?
It's my understanding that we were asked just to leave that undisturbed, so there was no talk about a buffer and putting a fence on the top of it.
So what we see, the excavation that we see right now is all that's going to occur? Like you're not going to go any further back or any more? This is the parcel, this whole yellow outline?
That is the limit of construction, and that's based on the road network that was approved by the city and part of the city network years ago. And D.R. Horton is simply acquiring that site, subject to your approval.
And so with the reduction of acreage, you created amenities with the reduction of acreage?
Lots, yes, sir. We reduced the density from 86 to 75, put in some pocket parks. They will have to redo the detention ponds, which I believe to be overgrown. And they'll have to bring those to current regulation, maintain them according to current regulation. Or be cited for not doing it, and they don't want that to happen.
Do you have an equation to share with us as to how much monthly payments are for houses that are in the 220s to 280s?
I don't have that information, but I'm hoping Ms.
You
Evans-
should have that.
I should know everything, and that's what my.
You should.
That's what my
You
wife
got to know your
tells
craft.
me all the time.
I bet she can come up here and do it. You should know it right off. Don't you sell houses and stuff like that?
I don't. I'm actually in just the land acquisitions part, so
Oh.
I help with projects like this. But with the 220s to the 280s, I mean 260s, that's actually going to be our starting prices. So any kind of like lot purchases or options from there can be added, or it can, someone can purchase what the standard features are. But you're looking at somewhere between the 1,600 to probably about 2,200.
So possibly a teacher or like a firefighter or
Correct.
professor from the university could possibly.
Yes, and depending on the down payment that's made, I mean, it can go lower.
Okay.
Okay, you just said that 1,700 to 2,200?
16.
I thought Mr. Fowler said 17 to 32
That's
Talking
square
about
feet.
price.
square feet on the houses.
Correct, yeah.
No, I'm talking about like monthly payments.
Oh, okay.
Looks like payment would be about $1,200 a month. That wouldn't include taxes or insurance.
With taxes and insurance.
The mayor was thinking that we were confusing that with the square footages of
Oh, I
houses.
see.
So which lots y'all gonna put 3,200 on 4,600 square feet a lot?
Well, it all depends on the actual lots that we have. There's not going to be a lot that can fit with that. That's why we have so many plans, because of the lot fit conditions. The lots are, they're not very deep. So that's another reason why if you actually stretch them and make them larger, that's really not going to make too much of a difference because they're so shallow. But there are some basement lots over by where this retaining pond is that are going to be a little bit deeper. So the houses will be, they will fit within the build guidelines or the building box, but they're just going to be a little bit deeper homes. So some of these homes that are a little bit deeper in basement homes, you could fit something like that on.
Would push you up to 3,200 square feet on a 4,600 square foot lot.
Well, actually, our average is 6,500, and it goes to 20,000 square feet for a lot, so.
Okay. Is anybody else that'd like to speak in favor of this project here tonight? Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
And my apologies if I came across as being humorous. I'm not, and I respect you all, so thank you.
I'm Dwayne Hicks. I live on Ringer Road in South Carroll County, broker manager of Metro West Realty, and I also serve as the local director of the West Metro Board of Realtors. I'm here tonight because we have a significant housing shortage in Carrollton. We have nothing to sell. You can talk to an average realtor that's working with buyers, and they're struggling to find inventory. I think we're almost to be able to use the word crisis to say that. I can tell you families who are moving their kids into the basement apartment or creating a place for their kids to live to keep them off the streets and keep them out of some areas that are not so desirable. We need this price point. We need this housing. And I don't know what, I'm not a mind reader, but I do know there's some dissent among you guys, and I'm just wondering what it's going to take to get something going here. It seems to me that these guys have checked all the boxes with the city staff. They seem to have gone overboard doing their due diligence, and yet it seems to me that the tenor of the council is no. And I'm just trying to figure that out. Is there a work session needed with these guys in and with the neighbors that are pushing back? We have a great city, and we need to keep allowing it to grow and lift a little bit. So I just want to encourage you guys to maybe rethink your no to a yes and get this thing going forward and getting that pipe neighborhood that's out there now, Gerald. If you go out there, it's pretty deplorable.
It's nasty.
And it could be a thriving place. And I think there can be some good neighbors to the folks at Heritage Hills who are also good neighbors. So I think it'd be a good project.
Is there anyone else? Anyone want to speak in opposition here tonight of this project?
Good evening. My name's Rick McMillan, 114 South Old Hickory Trail. This backs up to my property. Addressing a couple of the comments made previously in favor. At the last planning and zoning meeting, the reaction wasn't wow, these look like the houses in Windmill Park, we'd love that. The request was, what is your target audience? Who is your clientele you're going after? And what we've heard is, oh, we're going to go after new home buyers. We're also going to have a $500,000 house. We're going to look for professors. We're looking for retirement families. The request in that meeting was, we want the type of clientele that Windmill Park is pursuing, and that is the retirement community, that you don't have to worry about moving into the house and then in 1 to 2 years selling the house and potentially that neighborhood taking a downturn. The quality of these houses, the potential quality, is they're going to have some issues. I've got a construction background. I'm in residential construction currently, and we actually went out to one of their developments and looked at it. It's about 2 to 3 years old. The houses that are within a year, they generally look pretty good. They're on the street. They've got a little nicer quality. But when you turn the corner into that neighborhood, you start noticing that trim's already started to rot out. The paint has already failed. If you go online and start looking at some of their reviews, just a quick search, you can find 800 reviews on either management of warranty issues or execution of those warranty issues. So some of them, they're almost non-responsive or push it down the road. And then there's a lot of water management issues on those properties based on what we've looked at. The other comment was that they've done their due diligence and gone above and beyond. The last 2 planning and zoning meetings, I've specifically asked to see some additional information on floor plans. Sounds like they provided that to y'all, but not in those meetings when they were initially requested. Some of the landscape buffers that were requested, if they would, put something in there to give a buffer to Heritage Hills, or there's another neighborhood, I believe it's Greenwood Estates, that buffers up to this. There's approximately 5 properties that meet that. And the response was, there's already trees there. Welcome you to come out and look at what trees there are. There's a bunch of small pines that will have to be cut down to redo the silt fence that's there. So the landscape buffer is still a major concern, especially if it goes into production. And then third, D.R. Horton, I believe, stands to make quite the profit on this. Back when the development first was approved, it was a master plan. There's 18 acres next to this 20, and then across the street there's another 26 that's owned by the same or a sister company of the company that currently owns the land up in Marietta. But it was a master plan kind of developed the entire area. Now D.R. Horton's stepping in to develop one piece, and my concern is once you open that door, you may have another developer who comes in who wants to build something that's a lower quality, and how do you tell them no if they have a proven point that you let somebody in to do this? But when it was initially sold, I think the property sold for $1.4 million. Economy took a downturn, went into foreclosure, went back to the bank. The company that currently owns it appears to be a kind of a shell company. They bought it for $320,000. Last year they had it on the market for $1.2 million, so I assume they're still in that market. D.R. Horton's looking at this. So comparatively, initially sold for 1.4 with no infrastructure, no grading of the lots. The trees were still there. Potentially they're buying it for 1.2, and it's got streets and infrastructure already in place. The lots are graded. So I assume that they stand to make a higher profit on this development than they would on any others. I also assume that since they are one of America's largest builders, they know exactly how much it's going to cost to build every single house. Assuming they make 5% and they sell it at $200,000, 5% net, they're making $730,000, and I would be willing to suggest that they're going to make closer to 10 or 12% on each house. I may be falling short there. They are a production-based builder. Myself and my brother, we are value-based builders. We're more concerned with our client and providing what they're looking for. And as a production, your concern is profit and completing these projects. But I honestly feel that D.R. Horton has had the opportunity to talk to the community about different things they could do, and they have not brought any of those to the planning and zoning meetings until now. Now they're trying to answer a couple of quick questions and put a bow on it and get it approved. So I'm in opposition to this, and I'd just like for you to consider that as well. Thank you. So it's in Noonan, Georgia. I don't know the exact development name, but Stonebridge.
Does anyone else want to?
Hi, my name's Tom Dysinger. I live at 113 Stonewall Drive. My concern is not that I'm opposed. I believe that any positive growth in Carrollton should be enacted upon, but it has to be maintaining public and private assets. And it concerns me sitting back tonight and listening to the legal representative mentioning about the detention pond possibly not operational. Well, you haven't been there. All you're doing is talking, because the detention pond is filled with 3 to 6 inch trees. There's also bare ground that's allowing the mud and silt to come down. In my property, I own all the way along Stonewall Drive and down Amherst, which borders the Little Tallapoosa River, a drinking source, and there's wetlands back there. I've been there, I guess, 16 years now, and we had a lush growth of trees back there. Now there's starting to be signs of deterioration and loss. But the real concerning factor is with the non-porous surfaces, there's an increase in petrochemicals. When the water resides, there are petrochemicals sitting in the wetlands. And to turn over stormwater management to a homeowners association, I don't know what assurances that the city can give, because right now, I don't know if the holding company that owns it are special, but they sure aren't doing anything. So what is going to ensure that a homeowners association? But it's not only my property, it's the drinking water that's a wetlands down there. Part of the city property is also affected. And I believe that when he mentioned all the things that they're doing, I didn't hear any mention of a stormwater study or management plan. I know Tommy's been back to the property, and he'll concur that there's ground that's barren, that's allowing silt coming down, and it's non-functional, the detention pond. So please, when you guys consider, there should be some assurances to protect our assets, both public and private, and I didn't hear any mention of that whatsoever. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
My name's Robert McMillan. I live at 129 South Old Hickory Trail. Just wanted to point out one thing. They've mentioned some nice things. We've got amenities. We've got these pocket parks. The one we went and looked at Noonan was a lot that they didn't put a house on, flat with grass, had a trash can right in the middle. Sounds great. Pocket parks, going to be great. Reality, it's nothing special. It's an empty lot. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public discussion side. Is there any discussion from the council?
I was wondering, I mean, this property has sat there for a long time, and I don't want to come across as seeming like I'm saying that any project is better than no project, but I wonder what at all would make the people of Heritage Hills who have come here tonight to speak against this, what measure by these people, what could they do to make you happy or to appease you? And the issue with the retention pond and the trees and I almost feel like we need to table this and get y'all to work with them and come together again at a later date. And yes, I'm kind of leaning towards making a motion to table it.
Well, I agree with what Mr. Dysinger said, if I've got the name correct. It's a deplorable condition, and before we can do anything, we've got to redo the entire pond based on a stormwater management plan that Tommy Holland will have to review and inspect. We can't do anything until that's done, and so we agree with him. And you're not going to let us. Tim Grizzard would never give us or let any staff person give us a permit until that happens. So if it stays that way, he's going to keep having a problem until somebody develops it with a number of lots that you guys will approve. It's going to stay that way. The solution to the problem is let somebody go in and do what law requires us to do.
But we want you to build a quality product if you build here. We're better than that.
Yeah, we know you are, and that's
Yes,
what
we
we believe
are.
they can build. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened in Noonan about warranty claims. I'm not sure what the problem with a company making a profit is in America. Sounds a lot like a Bernie Sanders campaign to me. But that aside, we will absolutely do what's necessary to keep up with what the law requires. Now, if you want to table it, I'll be glad to meet with him and our engineer so he can see exactly what will have to happen.
But I don't know if they even want to entertain the idea, the people of Heritage Hills. I mean, what if they go away, and what if somebody with a lesser quality product comes along? You know, we'll be back here again. I don't know if we can play the role of mediator. I'm not trying to be a mediator here. I just want to. Yes, sir.
Take 5 houses out, spread them out. At the last planning and zoning, they came back and said they have no interest in reducing the number of houses that they currently have. So the concessions are not much.
So, that would have appeased planning and zoning if they had taken out the 5 houses that you're referring
It would have
to?
helped with Heritage Hills. I mean, ideally, what Heritage Hills would like are same size lot sizes to all the surrounding neighborhoods. And again, the larger concern is not necessarily, it is D.R. Horton, but the potential of they're only building 75 houses. There's 18 acres beside it. There's another 24 across the street. You could have 200 some odd plus houses if the zoning goes through at the current lot size.
And sir, would you take out 5? So you guys did not want to take out 5?
We reduced by 11 from 89 to 75, and that's where we are.
So 75 is the cap?
Yes,
You wouldn't go
that's where-
any?
Okay, I'm going to close discussion. I assume y'all ready to vote on this issue?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion. I move to deny D.R. Horton, Inc.'s rezoning and annexation application.
I have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. On denial. All in favor of Mett's motion and Mr. Waters is second, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
I just wish we could have found a solution and worked it out.
Resolution 13-219. Mr. Triplett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The memo in your agenda material for the meeting tonight talks about that we recently took bids for property liability insurance beginning May 1st through April 30th of next year.
Jim, can you hang on one second?
Yes, sir.
We've got a lot of people
Oh, I'm sorry.
meandering around. So.
Did not know.
That's all right.
Apologize.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And the successful bidder for the property liability package was the Georgia Municipal Association. they provide insurance services to member cities through their insurance arm, so to speak. It's called GIRMA. It's an abbreviation for the Georgia Local Risk Management Agency, Interlocal Risk Management Agency, excuse me. They're requesting all new member cities into their program to execute a resolution authorizing membership into the program. And basically, the resolution just states just a handful of basic provisions. Number one, that GMA is the administrator of the GIRMA insurance pool, that it's governed by a board of trustees that directs the affairs of the program. It outlines membership qualifications for member cities. It specifies that the initial membership period is 2 years, and then after 2 years, any member may withdraw after giving a 90-day written notice. After that, membership in the program can be determined on a year-to-year basis by member cities. Obviously, the city has to pay all required premiums and deductibles, and also the city is obligated to follow loss reduction and prevention procedures as established by GIRMA, and that the bylaws of GIRMA are developed by the GIRMA Board of Trustees. And those are the basic provisions, and your execution of the resolution would just be our recognition and acceptance of these provisions.
Anybody got any questions? Sounds kind of cut and dry. Have a motion we accept. Resolution 13-219.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a second. Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor of Resolution 13-219 as presented by Mr. Trippett, please raise your hand. All opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Jim, FY 2018-19 budget amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 budget amendments that we would submit tonight for your consideration and review. The first amendment is FY number 1902. It regards the sanitation fund. The amount of the amendment is $217,800. What this is in reference to is a street sweeper that was actually, you appropriated the money for and was ordered in FY18, but the equipment was not delivered until this current year, FY19. And so basically, this amendment matches the time period where we bought the equipment and our capital lease pool reimbursed us for that. And so it's a timing issue on that. The next amendment, FY number 19-03, relates to our special revenue fund, local transportation, our LMIG, our street paving, street striping fund that we do some work for. This is primarily state of Georgia funding. The amount of this amendment is $573,497. You see that part of this fund balance, $283,221, this is prior year grant revenues relating to the year before last that has not been spent. And then current year grant revenues of $290,276. And so we actually have started spending this money. We've processed 2 or 3 invoices, pretty close to $100,000. But this just authorizes this grant revenue money from the state of Georgia to be spent by you. And that's what that is. The last amendment that we would ask for your consideration, amendment number FY 19-04, relates to the Carrollton Convention and Visitors Bureau. As you know, we are working with the CVB Special Revenue Fund to draw down reserves in that fund to fund city marketing, branding, public relations campaign. The way the flow of the money in this process works, the city originally spends these funds through Department 754 in our general fund, the CVB. And then the CVB Special Revenue Fund reimburses the general fund for these expenditures on a monthly basis. And so you see that the increased expenditures are offset by increased reimbursement revenues from the Convention and Visitors Bureau Special Revenue Fund. So the professional services, the advertising, publicity, the printing and binding, these are the increased amounts that we're bringing forward to you tonight, and they will be offset by increased reimbursement revenues from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so those are the amendments we have. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to be real clear on this. These are bookkeeping items. These are not new expenses. These are bookkeeping items that keep the auditors happy. I'd be glad to explain in depth any of these. Again, that first one he mentioned, you authorized in the previous year's budget the purchase of that street sweeper. It took so long for that equipment to come in that we were in the next year, and we have to pay the bill then. And so this is something you already approved, but we had to show the money in the next year. So that's the only reason that's a change. It's not a new purchase at all in any way, shape, or form. The second item, again, is DOT money that Tommy gets for us, and it's been sitting there for us to use. We got pinged by auditors before for you not having allocated that. Again, this is not an expense to the city. It's money that's been sitting there for use for paving. And so we're just, again, it's just a bookkeeping issue. And then similarly with that last item, we get hotel motel tax money that goes to the CVB. They pay for things that the city does. And again, we got pinged before because y'all had not specifically allocated to do that. So these are not new expenses. These are not expenses that you didn't know about. It is clearly just bookkeeping and what fund this money comes from. I just want to be very clear on that.
Anybody got any questions? Motion we approve.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the fiscal year 19 amendments identified as 19-02 sanitation, which is the name of that department, 19-03 local transportation, the name of that department, and 19-04 Carrollton CVB, name of that department, as shown in our papers provided to us by city staff.
I have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of approval, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Mr. Jim.
You have in your agenda material the proposed FY20 operating budgets for the general fund, the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, Sanitation Enterprise Fund, the special revenue funds for Hazardous Material Response Team, Hotel Motel Tax Fund, the Local Transportation Fund, and I believe the Drug Seizure Fund. Just want to summarize briefly the major operating funds, beginning with the general fund. We're proposing to you a general fund operating budget of $28,004,958. As your transmittal letter says on page 1, this represents a total increase, including capital expenditures, of $1,173,006, 4% over the FY 2018-19 budget of $26,831,952. Now, when we remove the capital items from this budget proposal, and we have what we call the operation and maintenance budget, the proposed budget actually is $26,477,571 net of capital, and that actually represents a total decrease of $354,381, 1% from the FY 2018-2019 budget. I just want to make a couple of comments regarding our revenues for the general fund, and in the tax section regarding ad valorem real estate taxes. We're keeping that, forecasting to keep at the current level of $3,856,000. Your transmittal letter points out that after we had that major reassessment 2 years ago, we made a positive jump in this revenue of about $300,000. This year, the tax digest actually grew less than 1%. Probably lack of new growth, annexation, new construction, but also there's been a lot of appeals still going on. And the successful appeals and rollback of property values, it's affected our tax digest for the current year. And so we're recommending that we keep this at the current level until we get a better feel on where this is going or trending. I'm not going to go through all of these unless you have questions on it, but the two that are really doing well in the tax section of general fund, sales tax. Our current year budget is $4,200,000 budget, and we're forecasting $4,600,000. That's a really good indicator of how well our local retail economy is doing here in the city. And also, Another strong performer in our tax revenue for the city is our insurance premium tax. It continues to grow 7 to 9% each year, and we're forecasting that to increase by $150,000 to $1,870,000. We make the statement that overall, our revenue tax structure, it indicates economic stability with the potential for solid growth in the future. And moving down to licenses and permits, we are forecasting a $100,000 increase in permit to $225,000. We are having increased confidence in this area, and that number has been trending up in the last couple of years. Our intergovernmental revenue, which includes fire reimbursement, recreation reimbursement from Carroll County, our drug task force reimbursement, Convention and Visitors Bureau reimbursements, and Carrollton City Schools reimbursements, we're projecting to remain at near current levels. Our charges for service, indirect cost allocation, forecast to increase slightly by $22,000, and that's a computation that we make after we put all the budgets together. Our cultural arts revenue, our recreation department revenues, they continue to show healthy revenue numbers and increases. More and more people are utilizing our programs in the recreation and arts departments, and we anticipate that to continue. Our fines and forfeitures revenue, we're keeping at the current level of $1.1 million. One thing that I'm excited to bring forth is investment income. You'll notice that it's significantly increasing to $250,000, and after many years, the eligible investment options for local governments are finally starting to yield higher rates of return interest rate-wise, and so we're getting into a position where we can move reserve money to money market accounts, to CDs that's fully insured and collateralized, and we're fully expecting to get higher rates of return on our investment of idle funds in the coming year. Our rental revenue for the depot, the amphitheater, our recreational facilities, our arts facilities continue to be strong and growing each year. And we get down to the fund transfers. As we've talked about in recent years, this is the salary and benefits reimbursements to the general fund from the sanitation fund and the water fund, and also the fund transfers. And as we've said in recent years, we only budget what we actually need. We only transfer what we actually need to balance the general fund budget, and that is the same policy that we're proposing for this year. On the expenditure side for the general fund, and this same things go for the water fund and the sanitation fund, we are proposing a merit-based cost of living allowance, and that will average 3%. We're forecasting group health insurance to rise 8%. And our city retirement contributions, we are expecting to be at the current levels or a slight increase. We will get those numbers as we get on into the fall. The property liability insurance, the GERMA resolution that you just approved. Because of this, when we accepted the bid from GERMA, we increased our deductible on all lines of coverage from $2,500 and $5,000 on some lines of coverage. We increased everything to $10,000. That allowed us to keep our insurance premium at the current level. Actually, it decreased by about $4,000 or $5,000. And so we're in a very good position financially that we can absorb these increased deductibles. And we're looking at, if this $10,000 level works well this year, we will look at the possibility of moving to a $25,000 deductible next year, and we will have even more savings on our property liability insurance program. Our energy costs, whether it be gasoline, diesel, electricity, natural gas, that continues to go up and down, and so we give a best guess estimate on that, and we'll continue to monitor that and keep that as accurate as we possibly can. On page 3 of the transmittal letter, general fund highlights. Engineering, 140,000 bucket truck. Just like the budget amendment that you just approved for the street sweeper, this was a piece of equipment that was ordered last year, and it will not be delivered until this fall. And so basically, we need to reappropriate this money so it will be available to pay for it when it comes in. There is a shop addition to the engineering building for $20,000. Computer replacements, citywide as needed, $175,000. A lot of our desktop units are probably 6, 8 years old. They're getting a lot of age on them. We're starting to have some problems with that, and we need to replace those. The police department, the first lease payment on the new vehicles that you approved for the take-home program, $167,920. We're going to have to re-roof the older building of the public safety facility, and the police portion of that will be $87,100, and the fire portion of that will be $42,900. And on down in the fire department, a new fire marshal vehicle for $38,082. Moving down to the streets, as it's been in the last few years, $500,000 for street repair, paving, and maintenance, and that $500,000 is funded by a fund transfer from the sanitation fund to the general fund. In recreation, we have $192,000 of vehicle replacements, 3 vans, 2 pickup trucks, 1 service trucks. In Peter's budget request, he took pictures of all these vehicles, and I can personally attest they have seen their better days, and he's gotten about all he can get out of those, and so they're very much needed. New positions that we're proposing, a project engineer in the engineering department to handle increased workload there. Staff accountant in the finance department. Most of you all know we've had Debbie Cook working with us on a part-time basis for the last 2 or 3 years. She is retired, and we're very happy about that, but our auditors for the last 2 years are telling us our workload in the accounting department, as specifically relates to audit preparation, is getting to such, it's getting more and more each year, and they're recommending that we hire a full-time staff accountant to help handle this increased workload. Finally, for the general fund organizational highlights, we have set up a dedicated marketing, public relations department to coordinate the printing, the marketing, the advertising, the branding efforts of the city. The vast majority of this is not new cost to the city. We're budgeting this. We just simply moved it from existing departments into this new department. And I think everyone can attest that this new department is working very well. And then in general administration, proposing to fund an additional solicitor position to the state court, $100,000. So basically that summarizes the general fund, and I guess before we move on, I'll answer any questions you may have.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. I think it's incredible that the general fund operation and maintenance budget is basically 1% less than it was a year ago, and I want to thank the department heads for that. I want to thank the mayor for that. He's been vigilant, and he's been basically a budget hawk from day one. That it's incredible that we basically are cutting, or the general fund's being almost cut by $800,000. So to the department heads and to you, Jim, and to our city manager, thank y'all for your hard work. That's very impressive to me. And to the city, I'm sure the citizens of Carrollton appreciate that too.
Thank you, sir, very, very much.
I want to make a general comment about all 3 funds. I know y'all don't enjoy me talking about reserves, but our reserves are good. I won't go into the amount, but I will tell you they are, and they do vary from month to month through the year because revenue varies, taxes and such. But our reserves, the numbers I looked at today are from the end of April. Again, those numbers lag a little bit because it takes a little while to put them together. But our reserves are higher this year for this month than they were last year or the year before or the year before that. So as much as we build, as much as we do, we continue to trend upward. So I'm very proud of that. So again, we have very little debt, a tiny amount of debt for a budget this size, and we have, very healthy reserves.
On page 6 of the transmittal letters, we move toward the Water Enterprise Fund. We're proposing a budget of $18,448,083. That represents an overall decrease of $1,910,146, 9%. from the 2018-19 budget of $20,358,229. And that's basically, we're removing the retention storage water pond that we had been proposing across the river from the filter plant. That's still in the process of being engineered and permitted. And as Tim stated in his transmittal letter, at the time all of that's obtained, we will put that back in the current year budget and go forward with that. But that's the main reason for the decrease on that. As far as the salary, the merit-based COLA, it's the same 3% as it was for general fund. 8% increase in group health insurance expense. Retirement contributions, same levels as general fund. Our indirect cost allocation expense for the water fund, the salary reimbursements to the general fund, the funds transfer, they are very similar to current year. The water fund highlights, the filter plant, we are proposing $828,000 for some infrastructure work there. That includes alum pumps, membrane modules, painting the pipe gallery, and boiler work upgrades to our water filter plant. Our upkeep, systems upkeep, $45,000 for shop root replacement. And then this is one big item. Our current year, we have $500,000 in our capital for systems upkeep for water sewer line replacement. We are increasing that to $2.1 million in the process of working with the budget and talking with Mike Green, and we've identified a lot of areas where we need to do repair and rehab work on our water sewer lines, and so we went ahead and budgeted that money for the new coming year. Wastewater plant, $580,000 for major infrastructure upgrades, clarifier upgrades, and additional upgrades as needed. Replacement of 2 utility trucks, $109,000, and then replacement of a flatbed service truck, $53,100. And moving on down to facilities maintenance, $250,000 for infrastructure upgrades, and basically that is continuing on the lift station rehab, continuing on that, working on those lift stations, and then miscellaneous upgrades as they're identified and needed. This budget proposes a 3% rate increase, and a rate schedule is included as part of this transmittal. So that basically summarizes the water fund. And any questions or comments on the water fund?
And if you don't mind me commenting, and I don't
Sure.
drag this out,
Yes, sir.
there's a lot to do with a sewer collection system in all the neighboring towns that suffer from wastewater issues. It has to do with the leakage of rainwater and stormwater into the sewer system. Mike's got a crew that does nothing but televised lines. You'll see them, they pull a trailer with TV equipment in there. It's about $100,000 worth of equipment. They're constantly looking for these leaks. They're constantly finding those leaks. When I came here in '04, our plant's permitted for 7 million a day. It was running at about 6, 9, 8, so it was out of capacity. The peaks, it would flow 22 million. The basins would overflow. So Mike and his guys have worked and worked and worked, and we spend over $500,000 a year, sometimes approaching $1 million a year working on those sewer lines, and it's a great investment. It's way cheaper than building new plants. And so I would ask Tony what the flow is now, but it's probably under 4 million, about 4 million a day. So that 3 million gallons a day excess capacity is worth $50 million easily. It might be worth more than that if you had to build it. And so, again, I know I'm getting excited about something that only an engineer would get excited about, but I'm telling you, they do fantastic work, and it's a constant battle, and so that's why you see large numbers like that, but it's a very good investment.
On page 9 of your transmittal letter, the Sanitation Enterprise Fund, we're proposing a budget of $5,548,836, represents an increase of $368,551, 7%. Over the current year budget of $5,182,085. The big increase in this fund is a $100,000 projected increase in landfill expense. Our tonnage is going up every year of what we take to the landfill, and so that has to be budgeted and planned for. And as we said on the general fund side, we're fund transferring $500,000 from the sanitation fund to the general fund to cover street paving and repair infrastructure projects. Sanitation fund capital expense, we need a roof replacement, $32,000. He is not proposing any new vehicles for the coming year. As we close out with the hotel motel special revenue fund, hotel motel tax, we're projecting $820,000 for this fund, and this fund is completely funded by the 8% hotel motel tax that's levied. And as you see, $252,000 to the Carrollton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, $106,000 to the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce, and $461,000 for city tourism product development. And so those are the summary of the major funds. And then the minor funds, the hazmat fund is $3,500, and the drug seizure fund is $100,000. And to be perfectly honest, that's educated guess every year because we have no idea of what we're going to seize and be able to distribute every year. So anyway, and then the LMIG, the transportation fund, is in the back of your packet, and we're putting that's that grant money that you just did a budget amendment on, and we're budgeting $573,000 in there too. It's the same amount because it's a timing issue. We're not sure how fast we're going to get this money spent or drawn down, and so we wanted appropriated budget amounts in there just in case we cross the fiscal year.
And one point about sanitation fund,
Yes,
the landfill fee increase is really due to brush. We used to could take that to the transfer station. They can't take it anymore. You can't take it to a regular anymore. So it's $50 a ton to get rid of brush. It's only $39 a ton to get rid of garbage. I know that makes no sense, but in the environmental world, nothing makes any sense. We talked about grinding and storing the stuff somewhere here in town, but we know we'll have to move it later. So we really think the right thing to do is get rid of it now and get it properly landfilled. But that's the bulk of that increase is that brush and debris.
And of course, tonight is the public hearing. The final consideration in your vote will be at your meeting on July the 8th. So.
Jim, just a question on the sanitation enterprise fund. And you addressed part of it. And in your defense, I didn't make it I was not at the work session, as you know.
Yes, sir.
I was in court. Nevertheless, it went up 7% of 368,000. You said 100,000 of that 368 is for the landfill expense. Mm-hmm. That leaves 268. I know a portion of that's for the COLA. I'm just trying to what's the makeup of that other 268? You follow what I'm saying with my numbers? Did I lose you?
I think maybe you did.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll read it. Sanitation Enterprise Fund represents, so you have the proposed fiscal year budget, $5.5 million, represents an increase of 368,000, a 7% increase. Mm-hmm. And then you said 100,000 of that is the landfill expense. I understand that. Yeah. So now it leaves a balance of 268,000. And I'm just trying to figure out, I think you said a portion of that 268,000 is because of COLA, which I understand that.
Yeah.
So
and then
where was the rest of that?
Well, the COLA, and then is going to be 8% increase in group health insurance for the employees that are paid out of the sanitation fund.
All right.
And then
paving, I believe you said paving.
Yes, paving.
And how much money from sanitation fund is for?
500,000.
Okay.
And basically what that is, you'll see this budget proposes the last sentence, an allocation of fund balance of $744,836. In other words, to fund all this, we're going to basically hit sanitation fund reserves for
$744,000. Yeah, to transfer that to the general fund.
Well, not all of that will be transferred to the general fund, just the $500,000, but to fund the sanitation fund as a whole, with all of these things that we've talked about,
okay,
will require, we're budgeting to to use 744,000 of sanitation fund reserves.
Well, I understand. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And you've gone over that with me before, and I'm sorry. I just want to clarify it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Everything else, I mean, we had a decrease in the water fund and a 3% increase in the general fund, but then we have a 7% increase in the sanitation fund. And
Exactly.
it's been my experience, usually sanitation fund doesn't jump that much.
Exactly.
Any more questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion, have a second. Have a second.
My knees, I'm old.